Hello, I'm Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and today we're going to talk about the concept or the use of the new Omicron variant specific boosters, and this is what we're pushing now. We're not going to talk about the fact that the efficacy studies were done on 8 monkeys, which is true, and on antibiotic testing, not on just that ridiculous part we're not going to talk about, but whether or not they actually have a difference versus just using the original let's say the ancestral strain, the original strain out of Wuhan. And so this was a very large study in that there were 66 contributing authors, which is a huge number of people who had their hands and input in the study. And first of all, they looked at, this was an animal study, so a primate study, and they looked at whether giving the Omicron specific booster versus the original booster made a difference. And the issue here, which is we're using, first of all, surrogate end markers, and that is antibody. We're not looking at actual hospitalizations, death, and cases. We're looking at an end marker that antibody may be reflective of whether or not it helps, or it might not be. It's called a surrogate end marker when we're looking for something that's usually quicker to check, but many times when we look at the big picture, it fails dramatically. We see this a lot in cancer using progression-free survival versus overall survival. We saw it in statins with cholesterol versus heart attacks. We see it in Alzheimer's with, we spent billions of dollars in research looking at the different proteins in the brain, but they didn't really make a difference. So we've seen lots of times where surrogate end markers is a failed concept, and it's not good to put all of our eggs in one basket. But so what they ended up looking at, and these were based on the Moderna, the mRNA 5287 or whatever it is, but they looked at the animals having the initial boosters, and what they found was, sure enough, there was a big spike in week 6. By 41 weeks, it really just plummeted, almost an 18% lower antibody response. Again, don't hang your hat on just the antibody response, because that's not all we should be looking at, and that's not all the immune system does. But what was interesting is when they used the Omicron specific booster versus just the regular booster in these animals, there really wasn't much of a difference. So the idea of using an Omicron specific booster didn't make a difference in this primate study using surrogate end marks, but that's not the real important thing here. And the real important thing is that there wasn't much of a difference. We gave a vaccination that for Omicron, which has some 60 different proteins in it in the spike protein, and the body didn't respond the mammalian body, in this case the primates, did not respond any different than they did to the original vaccine. And the authors suggested that this might have everything to do with original antigenic sin or imprinting. And this is something that a lot of smart people have been talking about since day one. And basically what ends up happening is you prime the body, the immune system, with the original antigen, and it's just looking at this versus an infection where the body, I've seen some really stupid analogies with some people who should otherwise be smart talking about, I think they use the analogy of, is it a boxer training, and you should continue to train, and the reality is a boxer needs to have offense and defense. They need to work on their jab, their cross, their uppercut, their footwork, everything. So just training just the jab, that would be the equivalent of training the boxer for a jab, and then he comes across a fighter who has a really good hook and covers well that boxer with a really phenomenal jab is going to get destroyed. And that's what we're potentially seeing here, is that when we give the original booster, the immune system targets just that specific version of the spike protein, and when it's reintroduced to the Omicron booster, the immune system doesn't really care it's still going to be looking at which is why we didn't see much of a change. That's a challenge. This is one of the big potential problems with the mRNA vaccines, and one of the reasons why I personally think that it's going to be a failed model. We're going to quietly just push it to the side and go back to the old original, mutated, basically hit the virus over the head with a mallet and give that an attenuated or killed version. I don't know why we didn't do that before. The original argument for the mRNA was, first of all, it was the shiny new toy. And we thought, oh, well, because of that, we can ramp out production quicker. But it also means that you can quickly make changes. And yet, 2 years later, we still really weren't making any changes. It was just the ridiculous excuse, and the excuse they gave on the front end, they didn't even use it for that reason. So, as always, I'll post a link to this particular study. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody who you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.